Hey guys, this is Thomas over here, nursemoneytalk.com. And if you've ever heard nurses talking about like the NCLEX and you're kind of wondering what exactly is the NCLEX, maybe you kind of sort of know, but not really, or why even nurses have to worry or take, this NCLEX exam. I'm going to talk about that in this video. So first and foremost, let's go ahead and take a step back and just make sure we're on the same page about what exactly the NCLEX is. So the NCLEX, or the National Council Licensure Exam, is the licensing exam or boards, if you will, that somebody has to take in order to be licensed as a nurse. So there's technically two NCLEXs. There's the NCLEX RN, which is the licensure exam for a registered nurse, and then there's the NCLEX PN, which is the licensure exam for an LPN or LVN, licensed vocational nurse or licensed practical nurse. And so in order for nurses to even be allowed to take the NCLEX or even to sit for boards, if you will, they have to take and pass an approved nursing program. And so that is the NCLEX. If you want to know how the NCLEX is scored or anything like that, then make sure to check out this video. It'll also be in the descriptions below. As for why nurses even have to take the NCLEX, right? There are a handful of reasons. I've come up with probably about 5 reasons why somebody needs to take the NCLEX in order for them to become a nurse. And so the first one is that it protects the public. It's a public safety thing. The NCLEX pretty much ensures that nurses have the necessary skills and knowledge to provide a safe and effective care to patients. And, of course, this just means that now this, protects the public from any potential harms from somebody who's, like an incompetent practitioner. And so you can, of course, then start seeing the benefits there. Now, you'll notice some of these will kind of intermingle a little bit, but they're a little bit different. And so the second one is that it maintains a high level of standards. So by passing the NCLEX, the regulatory bodies, and this is not just necessarily talking about the state boards of nursing, which is what generally people think about. But remember, those state boards of nurses they're controlled or regulated, if you will, by state legislators. And so they can then pretty much ensure that there's like a high level of standard that's maintained. And so this, you think about it and you're thinking from a state standpoint, but you also kind of have to think about it from the nursing standpoint as well, somebody who is already a nurse. And so one of the things you'll see from people who will actually push for licensure, so this is even like not necessarily related to nursing, but just any profession where a licensure is involved, is one of the things that you will see is that the people who tend to push for licensure, or the people who push for stricter licensure requirements, can actually be the people who are already licensed. So the people who are, if you will, they've already have broken through the barrier. And there's a lot of reasons for this that I can get into, such as like, what it does in terms of competition of the market and whatever. But even just looking at it strictly from a high standards point of view, if I am a nurse, I have a lot of vested interest in making sure that the people who are becoming nurses, the people who are allowed to, get into the club, if you will, that they are competent nurses and that they will not kind of bring the profession down in terms of just sloppy work or, whatever the case may be. Because a competent nurse, a nurse that is good at what they're doing, makes me look good. And you can see, examples of somebody who is not a good nurse and somebody who's just incompetent can then potentially make me look bad and make the profession look bad. The third thing is that it can assess for competence, right? Which is kind of sort of related to the public safety and also kind of sort of related to the maintaining high standards. Remember what I said, that some of these points, they kind of commingle a little bit, but they're still kind of distinct and different in and of themselves. Because when you're talking about assessing and maintaining competence, you're looking at that really the NCLEX is a reliable and an objective measure of a candidate's nursing competence. It allows us to really gauge in a consistent manner, and I'll get to that in a second, if this person is knowledgeable. The fourth point is that the NCLEX promotes professional development. So preparing for the NCLEX, taking the exam, encourages and promotes ongoing learning and professional development, because one of the things that you'll see with the NCLEX, or pretty much for just about most, if not every board, is that it's changing. That they rarely ever stay stagnant. Even as I'm recording this video, the NCLEX just went through a kind of like an overhaul, if you will, as they're trying to adapt and improve it for modern medicine. And so that's an important part, because it means that we're not stuck in 20 years ago. Because even from the standpoint of 5 years ago, a lot in medicine, a lot in healthcare has changed. And 5 years from now, a lot will change. That's just how healthcare works, and that's just how science in and of itself works. The fifth point is that it ensures consistency. Remember, related to some of the other points, but a little different. And the consistency is that it sets a standard across the board. I know some people will argue that boards or any kind of standardized exams generally aren't good predictors of how successful somebody's going to be. I know that you can see that when it comes to things like the SAT, ACTs, and kind of like the arguments there. And while I'm not sure, I haven't really seen anything specifically related to boards, but some of those arguments, I can see how that would hold through for boards. And even some of the nurses and people that I've known that have passed the NCLEX that I've worked with, or have failed many times and that I've also worked with, I can kind of see how standardized exams can potentially not be good indicators. But at the end of the day, they might not be good indicators, but they are probably some of, if not the best indicators we have, and something that we can objectively measure. Because the thing with standardized exams is that they ensure consistency. A standardized board ensures consistency across the board. And while you have nursing programs that, they have to follow specific curriculum and all this other stuff, and there's rules and guidelines set in place, really, I would imagine from a accrediting standpoint that it's really hard to kind of monitor all of that. And so how do you best monitor for all of these? So if you think about, there's a ton of schools and all this other stuff, a lot of students, how do you best monitor for competency? You essentially funnel them all into one pathway, one gate, if you will, where you can check everybody's competency. And that gate, if you will, ends up being the NCLEX. So that's all that I have for this video. If you found this video informative, then I would really appreciate the thumbs up so that more people will be able to find this video. That's just kind of how the YouTube algorithm works. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you very soon in that next video.